There are moments in every universe when the stars seem to hold their breath, waiting. Moments when mortal hearts outshine divine fire, when power is born not of rage, but of remembrance. And sometimes the gods themselves must kneel before a single decision made by a mortal who has seen too much peace to crave war and too much loss to ignore its call. This is the legend of son Gohan, the scholar who once walked away from battle, only to find that the cosmos itself would summon him back, not as a warrior, not as a savior, but as something far more terrifying, a god of destruction whose heart still remembered what it meant to love. Before we step into this alternate destiny, remember to join the journey, so our timelines may never fade into silence. For in this story, every heartbeat echoes across galaxies. The wind over Mount Paozu carried the scent of spring, warm, patient, unhurried. Beneath that sky, son Gohan sat beside a small field of golden flowers, his son's laughter echoing across the valley. It was a sound that once could have silenced even the gods, pure, untainted, impossibly alive. For years now, he had chosen peace. Books had replaced battlefields, and the pulse of ki within his veins had dulled into something faint, like a candle left to burn quietly in the corner of a forgotten temple. Videl often teased him for it, said the world had forgotten who he was. But Gohan knew better. The world had simply moved on, and he had let it. Yet sometimes, when the stars shimmered too brightly, or when thunder rolled too low, a pressure would rise inside him, a reminder, the echo of the boy who had screamed against gods and monsters alike, the one who had once stood alone in the crater where Cell had fallen. That version of himself lingered, like a ghost in his bones, patient and watching. He could feel it now, the quiet before something vast. That night he dreamed of Beerus, not the lazy god who loved pudding and naps, but a silhouette, golden eyes burning through the void. Behind him, universes trembled, and in his hand a sphere of purple light pulsed like a dying star. "Balance falters," said the voice that was both within and beyond. "A mortal heart must carry the flame."
When Gohan woke, the air itself was vibrating. The next morning, Whis appeared in the garden where Gohan was tending to the soil with Goten. The angel's staff glowed faintly, bending the light around him. His expression was soft, yet there was a gravity that could bend worlds. "Good morning, son Gohan," Whis said, his tone almost cheerful. "You've been summoned." Gohan blinked. Summoned? By whom? Whis smiled, the kind of smile that meant the answer was already known. "By the universe itself. Lord Beerus requests your presence." Gohan looked toward the house. Videl was inside, humming softly. Goten chased butterflies. He had promised never to drag his family back into the storms of gods and battles. That promise now weighed heavier than ever. "I'm not sure I'm the right person," he said quietly. "My father, Vegeta, they're busy," Whis interrupted gently, "and unfit for what must come. This is not a battle of strength. It is a test of balance." The angel's eyes flickered, seeing something beyond mortal sight. Lord Beerus dreams of endings. His power wavers. The threads of destruction grow unstable. Without a successor, universes will collapse unevenly. Creation will consume itself. Gohan stood in silence, his hands trembling slightly. He wasn't a warrior anymore. Not truly. He was a teacher, a father, a man who had once sworn to fight only when the innocent cried out. But the cosmos was crying now, in a voice only he could hear. Why me? Whis tilted his head, as if listening to the question echoed by the stars themselves. Because you've learned mercy, and mercy, in its purest form, is the twin of destruction. The words settled like fire in Gohan's chest. He turned toward the horizon, the same one he had once flown across as a boy, chasing hope and fear. He could almost hear Piccolo's voice in the wind, calm and stern. Power is not evil, Gohan. The intent behind it is.
He exhaled slowly. If I refuse? Whis smiled again. Then another will be chosen. But remember, the gods do not choose mortals who can refuse destiny for long. The world around them shimmered. With a touch of his staff, Whis opened the gate of light, the entrance to Beerus's world. Its energy hummed like a living storm. Gohan looked back once more. Videl had stepped outside, shielding her eyes from the sudden light. She met his gaze. No words, just a knowing silence, the kind that said, "You've always been meant for more." "Tell Goten I'll be back soon," Gohan said, though a part of him wasn't sure. And then he stepped through the gate. The air on Beerus's planet was heavy, not with oxygen, but with pressure. Every molecule trembled under the god's presence. Beerus sat beneath a tree that grew from starlight, his golden eyes half closed. Around him, the planet's ocean reflected entire galaxies, swirling like a canvas painted by divinity itself. "You took your time," Beerus murmured, his voice low and thunderous. "I didn't know I was being summoned by a god," Gohan replied, bowing slightly. Beerus opened one eye. Respectful. Unnecessary." His tail flicked once. "You're the son of Kakarot, a being who constantly screams at destiny until it bends. I expected more arrogance." "I'm not my father," Gohan said quietly. Beerus smirked. "No, that's precisely why you're here." The silence stretched. Then, without warning, Beerus raised a hand. A flicker of purple energy appeared, small at first, then expanding until the very air began to crack. Gohan instinctively raised his ki to shield himself, the field of golden aura flaring out before he could even think. The explosion never came. Instead, the sphere of destruction stopped, hovering inches from his face, humming with impossible power.
"Do you fear it?" Beerus asked, his tone unreadable. Gohan looked into the sphere, into annihilation itself, and for a heartbeat he saw everything he had ever protected reflected within. His mother's smile, Videl's warmth, Goten's laugh, Piccolo's steady hand, the earth. He whispered, "I fear wasting it." For the first time in centuries, Beerus's expression changed. Whis, standing silently beside them, closed his eyes. The threads of fate twisted anew. The gods had found their candidate. The mortal flame had been reignited, and somewhere in the distance, the universe exhaled. Beerus rose slowly, his long frame cutting through the golden mist that surrounded his world. The faint sound of distant thunder followed his every movement, not from the sky, but from the vibration of his own ki. When he spoke, the sound seemed to ripple through reality itself. "Fear wasting it," Beerus repeated, his tone almost curious. "Interesting. Every god I've met fears using it. You fear not using it correctly." Gohan stood silent, the echo of his own words hanging in the void. He hadn't planned to say them. They had come from somewhere deeper than thought. from the place in his heart where his father's sacrifice and his own failures still burned quietly, refusing to fade. Beerus turned away, his gaze drifted toward the endless stars above. Tell me, son of Goku, what does destruction mean to you? Gohan hesitated. The question carried weight. It wasn't just about energy, it was about philosophy, existence, the order of the universe itself. After a long silence, he said softly, "To destroy isn't to erase meaning, it's to end what's lost its place, to give something else the chance to grow."
Whis's staff glowed faintly. The angel said nothing, but his eyes flickered with interest. Beerus smirked. "You sound like a Kaioshin. They destroy nothing, and yet talk like that endlessly." "But maybe that's the point," Gohan said. "You and they are two halves of the same truth. One creates, one ends. Neither can exist without the other." The god's eyes narrowed, golden light flashing like lightning across a storming horizon. "You speak boldly for a mortal." Gohan met his gaze. "You asked." A stillness settled, the kind of silence that came before the birth of a new world or the fall of an old one. Then, unexpectedly, Beerus laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that cracked the tension. "Whis, I like this one. He thinks like a philosopher, but fights like a Saiyan." Whis smiled faintly. "He used to fight like a Saiyan, my lord. He'll need to remember what that means." Beerus turned, the humor vanishing from his voice. "Then let's see if he remembers." Before Gohan could react, the god vanished, reappearing in front of him in less than an instant. A single finger pressed lightly against his chest. The touch carried no visible force, yet Gohan's body bent backward as if struck by a mountain. The ground shattered beneath him, cracks spider-webbing across the planet's crystalline surface. He gasped, the air torn from his lungs. The old instincts flared awake. Without thinking, he transformed. Golden light burst outward. The familiar roar of the Super Saiyan ignited the atmosphere. The storm above the planet rumbled in response, and for a fleeting moment, Gohan felt that rush again, the pure pulse of power, the wild heat of battle. Beerus's eyes gleamed. "There it is, the storm within the scholar." Gohan steadied his breathing, the glow around him bright and sharp. "I didn't come here to fight." "You didn't come here to refuse either," Beerus replied. His hand rose again, and this time the blow was real, faster than sight, heavier than comprehension. Gohan barely blocked it, his arms trembling under the pressure. Every strike from Beerus felt like the judgment of the universe itself, clean, inevitable, divine. Whis watched in silence. This was no test of victory. It was a test of nature. Gohan pushed back, every cell in his body screaming. Sparks of violet energy began mixing with his golden aura, unfamiliar, unstable. Beerus noticed it immediately. "That color," he murmured, "you've already begun touching it." Gohan didn't know what he meant, but the god's words sent a chill through him. He lunged forward, his movements guided not by rage, but by clarity, the same clarity he had felt when he fought Cell all those years ago. Each punch carried purpose, not pride. Each dodge was measured, not desperate. For a mortal moment, even Beerus paused, sensing something unsettlingly pure in the rhythm of the fight. And then, silence. Beerus appeared behind him, whispering, "Enough." A single strike followed, gentle, precise, yet unstoppable. The world shattered into light. Gohan's body collapsed, the energy around him flickering out like a dying flame. When his vision cleared, he was lying on the surface of the planet, sky above, stars spinning slowly. Beerus stood over him, arms crossed. "You lack instinct," the god said calmly. "You think too much. Power doesn't come from thought.
It comes from the acceptance of what you are. Whis floated closer. And what he is, my lord, is conflicted. He denies half his nature. Beerus nodded once. A scholar who fears his rage. A Saiyan who fears his mercy. Tell me, son Gohan, can such a being ever become a god? Gohan looked up, his chest heaving. He said, Maybe not yet, but I can learn. Something flickered in Beerus's eyes, something ancient and faintly human. We shall see. He turned away, the storm above beginning to fade. Rest. Tomorrow, Whis will show you the path. If you fail to understand it, you'll never stand before me again.
As Beerus vanished into the air, Whis knelt beside Gohan, his tone softer now. You spoke of destruction as mercy. Remember that. But also remember this. Mercy without strength is nothing but sentiment. He touched Gohan's shoulder, and the pain vanished. Tomorrow begins the trial of balance, not between gods and mortals, but between the two halves within you. The angel rose, his staff gleaming. Sleep, Gohan. Even the cosmos rests before rebirth. And as darkness closed around him, Gohan's thoughts drifted to earth, to Videl's quiet smile and Goten's laughter. He wondered what they would see if they looked at the stars tonight. Perhaps a flicker of gold hidden in the void, a whisper that said, "The quiet storm has awoken." When Gohan awoke, the sky was no longer blue. It shimmered with streaks of violet and gold, energy currents twisting like living threads, connecting the atmosphere itself to the heartbeat of the planet. Whis hovered above the ground, serene as ever, his staff's tip faintly glowing. "Good morning," the angel said, as if the universe hadn't shifted overnight. "You lasted longer than most mortals do against Lord Beerus." Gohan sat up slowly. His muscles ached in ways that words couldn't describe, not from the pain of defeat, but from the weight of realization. He had touched something in that battle, not just power, but an essence, something beyond the spectrum of mortal ki. What was that energy I felt? The violet light. Whis smiled, his tone carrying the patience of eternity. That, dear Gohan, is the resonance of destruction, the Hakai ki. Few mortals ever survive being near it, fewer still awaken it within themselves. Hakai, Gohan repeated, the word heavy on his tongue. So it's not just power, it's a principle. Exactly, Whis said, pleased. The energy of destruction is not rage or hatred. It is acceptance. The acceptance that all things end, even stars, even gods. He turned, gesturing toward the horizon where the twin suns of Beerus's world began to rise. Lord Beerus wields that acceptance as instinct. You, however, will need to understand it as choice. Gohan stood, feeling the gravity of the planet pressing against him. The ki here behaved differently, sharp, volatile, alive. It reacted to his presence, testing him, as if the world itself was deciding whether he was worthy of walking upon it. Whis guided him to a vast plain, an endless field of floating stones suspended over a sea of purple light. This, the angel said, is where mortals confront the truth of destruction. You must learn to dissolve your ki, not into rage, but into stillness. Stillness? Gohan echoed, surprised. But I was always taught that power comes from motion, from pushing beyond limits. Whis shook his head gently. That is Saiyan instinct.
But destruction is not born from effort, it is born from stillness, the point where you no longer resist what must be. He extended his staff. A single stone floated forward. Try it. Channel your energy into this stone and erase it. Not by force, by release. Gohan hesitated. Erase it? Whis nodded. Completely. No residue, no explosion. True Hakai leaves no echo. Gohan inhaled slowly, extending his hand. The stone hovered before him, silent, unthreatening. He gathered his energy, focusing it into his palm. Golden ki flared around him, the familiar hum of Super Saiyan energy vibrating through the air. He released it. The stone shattered, fragments scattering in every direction, glowing briefly before fading. Whis sighed. Impressive, but not Hakai. That was destruction through conflict, not acceptance. Gohan frowned. What's the difference? Whis floated closer, his gaze calm but piercing. Conflict creates resistance. Resistance leaves trace. The Hakai flame is absolute because it carries no intent other than truth. He raised his hand. The same kind of stone appeared, hovering before him. With a mere thought, it dissolved. Not broken, not burned, simply gone. Erased as though it had never existed.
The silence that followed felt sacred. That, Whis said softly, is destruction born of balance. Gohan stared at his own hand. How can something so final come from peace? Whis smiled faintly, because only those who have made peace with all things can destroy without attachment. The word struck something deep within him, the old guilt, the old fear. He had spent his life avoiding battle, convinced that strength only led to pain. But now, standing at the edge of godhood, he realized that avoidance was its own form of destruction, the slow decay of purpose. He looked at the next stone. This time, he did not summon rage or memory. He closed his eyes and thought of everything he loved. Videl, Goten, Piccolo, Earth. The laughter, the quiet nights, the fragile beauty of it all. He let go. The energy within him shifted, not gold, not white, but something between them. A faint purple shimmer danced across his palm, and for a heartbeat, the air itself stilled. The stone vanished. Whis' smile deepened. There it is, the beginning of Hakai. But before Gohan could process the moment, the ground trembled. A deep rumble echoed across the sky. The purple light beneath the stones began to twist violently, rising like smoke into the heavens. Whis' expression changed, rare concern flickering in his eyes. That is not part of the lesson. The light formed into a figure, humanoid, vast, shimmering with dark crimson energy. Its voice was like static and thunder intertwined. Mortals, touching divinity again. Blasphemy. Whis stepped forward. A remnant, a rogue echo from an unbalanced universe. Stand back, Gohan.
But Gohan's instincts surged, not of fear, but of recognition. The presence felt familiar. The anger, the pain. It was what he had felt years ago, buried deep beneath his fight with Cell. The wrath of wanting to protect and destroy at once. I have to face it, Gohan said, his voice steady. It's part of me, isn't it? Whis did not stop him. Angels never interfered with self-realization. The figure lunged, moving with impossible speed. Gohan raised his arm, blocking the blow, the impact sending shockwaves across the plain. Sparks of violet and crimson collided, hissing and screaming in the air. The entity's voice roared.
You dare balance mercy and power! You are neither mortal nor god! You are nothing!" Gohan's aura flared, his eyes burning gold and violet. Maybe so, but even nothing can choose what it becomes. He thrust his hand forward, not in anger, not in vengeance, but in clarity. The purple light erupted, clean and silent, and the shadow dissolved, whispering as it faded, "Then become what even gods fear to be." The sky cleared. The stones drifted back into balance. Whis floated closer, the faintest trace of awe in his voice. "You didn't destroy it, Gohan. You released it." Gohan exhaled, trembling slightly. "Maybe I finally released myself." Whis smiled softly. "Then you've taken your first step toward the impossible." The angel looked to the stars, where the faint shimmer of Zeno's realm pulsed far above. "The gods will feel this. They will not all welcome it." The wind stirred, carrying the hum of awakening power. The mortal flame was no longer quiet. It had begun to burn in the language of gods. For hours, silence ruled the planet of Beerus. The sky had dimmed to a solemn violet, and the stars above seemed to flicker faster, like hearts racing. Gohan sat at the edge of the levitating plane, his legs crossed, his eyes fixed on his own trembling hands. The faint trace of purple still lingered in his palms, flickering with each heartbeat. He had touched something divine, and it terrified him. Whis, ever calm, stood behind him with his staff grounded lightly against the air. The angel's reflection shimmered across the cosmic sea below, soft and infinite. "You feel it, don't you?" Whis said gently. Gohan nodded. "It doesn't feel like mine. It feels alive." Whis tilted his head. "Hakai ki is not owned. It is understood. It flows through those who accept the truth of endings." Gohan stared into the horizon. "It's strange. When I destroyed that entity, I didn't feel rage or satisfaction. I just felt quiet." "That quiet," Whis said, "is the nature of destruction done properly. Not the silence after chaos, but the silence that precedes creation. Every erasure makes room for something to be born. Every god who wields this flame must understand that they do not decide meaning, they make space for it." The words sank deep, settling into a part of Gohan that had never known rest. He had lived so much of his life caught between what he was told to be and what he wished to become: scholar and warrior, human and Saiyan, peace and power. Now he saw it clearly. Destruction was not a rejection of life, it was its renewal. He rose slowly. "I want to learn more." Whis's smile softened. "Then the lesson deepens." The angel raised his staff, and the world shifted. The planes vanished, replaced by an enormous chamber of floating symbols, glyphs of light rotating endlessly, each representing a universe. The air vibrated with the hum of cosmic balance. "This," Whis said, "is the chamber of calibration. It reflects the flow of creation and destruction across all realms. When a god loses balance, their symbol burns too bright or too dim."
Gohan looked up in awe. The scale of it made his mortal senses tremble. Each glyph pulsed with a rhythm, living, breathing, eternal. But one among them flickered erratically, dark smoke bleeding from its light. "That one," Gohan said quietly. "It's unstable." Whis nodded. "Universe 11. Its god of destruction has faltered. He destroys without judgment, only fear. Fear of losing purpose." Gohan's gaze hardened. "And when a god falters? Worlds die that were never meant to." The realization hit like a blow. Even divine power could decay, could forget why it existed. The very thing Whis had warned him about was already happening. Whis's eyes turned toward him, glowing faintly. Lord Beerus may act like a sloth, but even he understands balance. The others, however, may not. The Council of Zeno grows restless. They sense what you've done, that a mortal has touched the flame. Are they angry? Whis paused. Not yet, but the idea of mortal divinity unsettles them. It has, before. Images flickered in Gohan's mind, memories not his own, but echoes of the cosmos itself. He saw a being cloaked in light, a mortal once chosen by a god, rising too fast, burning too bright, until even the angels turned away. A lesson written in eternity. Mortals who rise too far either transcend or perish. The vision faded. Why me, Whis? Why not someone who wants this? Someone like Vegeta, or even my father? Whis gave a faint chuckle. Because they would chase power. You ran from it. That humility is what makes you dangerous. Gohan turned toward him, startled. Dangerous? Whis nodded. To the natural order. A mortal who holds both compassion and destructive will challenges the very design of godhood. You are the contradiction the multiverse was never meant to solve.
The air quivered. A low hum built across the chamber, like a heart preparing to rupture. The unstable glyph flared violently, and an image formed within it, a colossal being cloaked in crimson ki, its aura devouring stars. Whis's prone sharpened. That is Belmod, the god of destruction of Universe 11. His equilibrium is fracturing. Through the rift a scream echoed, not of pain, but of despair. If creation forgets its place, then everything burns. The chamber shook. Energy crackled through dimensions. Whis raised his staff, sealing part of the disturbance, but Gohan could still feel the echo of it, the agony of a god losing control. Gohan clenched his fists. He's destroying worlds out of fear. Whis nodded grimly. Yes, the flame without balance consumes its wielder. Gohan's voice lowered. Then teach me to stop it. Whis turned his gaze upon him, eyes unreadable. To stop a god of destruction, Gohan, you must become one, temporarily. Your mortal body cannot contain that burden for long. You must learn to hold the Hakai within your soul, not your flesh. I'm ready. Whis studied him, the hesitation, the grief, the hope. Then, quietly, very well. But understand this. Once you step into that energy, you may not come back the same. You may never wish to. I know. Whis's staff struck the air, a sound like glass breaking and thunder roaring at once. The world shattered into blinding violet light. In an instant, Gohan stood on the edge of a dying universe. Stars were imploding, planets reduced to vapor. The cosmic sea burned with purple flame. Across the void, the towering figure of Belmod turned, eyes wild, divine, and desperate. His aura twisted like molten fire. Another mortal? He snarled. Another mistake of the angels? Gohan floated forward, calm, resolute. The violet light around him pulsed softly, neither violent nor afraid.
I'm not here to fight you, he said. I'm here to understand. Belmod roared, his voice shattering moons. Then understand this, mercy is weakness.
He raised his hands, and the storm of destruction surged toward Gohan, devouring everything in its path. For a heartbeat, time froze, and Gohan, the scholar, the son, the warrior who had walked away from battle, closed his eyes. He opened them again, and violet fire bloomed behind them. Whis's voice echoed from across dimensions. "Remember, Gohan, Hakai is not fury. It is truth." The collision collided with him. The universe screamed. And for the first time, the god of destruction of Universe 11 faltered. The collision was wordless, yet it spoke the language of gods. When Belmod's cosmic fire met Gohan's stillness, the universe itself hesitated, torn between two kinds of power, one born of fear, desperate to preserve meaning by erasing it, the other born of acceptance, ready to let go of what could no longer stand. Light tore across the void, consuming galaxies. From afar, it looked like dawn blooming across eternity. Within it, two souls collided, a god who had forgotten peace and a mortal who had found it again. Gohan's arms trembled under the weight of Belmod's Hakai storm. His body felt like glass pressed against the tidal wave. Each second stretched into an eternity, his ki bleeding between gold and violet. His mind screamed for breath, for resistance, but his heart whispered something else. Do not fight it. Flow through it. He inhaled once deeply. Every lesson Piccolo had taught him echoed in that single breath. Every word his father had said about trusting instinct returned as light. And beneath it all, his mother's voice, her plea that he never lose himself to violence, became the anchor that steadied his soul.
Belmood's voice cracked through the storm. You think mercy will save you? Mercy destroyed me! Mercy made me weak! Gohan looked up, eyes glowing with gentle violet fire. Then maybe you never understood it. He raised his hand, and the storm of Hakai began to slow, not through dominance, but through calm. The violent energy that surrounded him began to unravel, drawn into the gravity of his stillness. Whis watched from beyond the veil of space, his expression unreadable. Even among angels, few could grasp the magnitude of what was unfolding. This was not power, this was balance incarnate. Belmod staggered back, disbelief in his eyes. What are you doing? Gohan's voice was soft, but it carried through the collapsing void. Ending your suffering. His aura pulsed once, and Belmod's energy shattered. The god cried out, his crimson light fracturing into thousands of fading shards. As his form began to dissolve, he looked at Gohan not with rage, but with the dawning clarity of release. So, this is Hakai without hate. Gohan nodded, tears forming in his eyes. Yes, it's not destruction, it's freedom. Belmod smiled faintly, the first and last smile of his divine existence. Then destroy me completely. Let me rest. Gohan closed his eyes, his hands trembling. I'm sorry. He whispered the word Hakai. A single tear fell, glowing violet, and the god of Universe 11 vanished without pain, without echo, without trace. The rift sealed itself. The stars, long silenced, began to breathe again. The silence afterward was unbearable. Gohan floated alone amid the remnants of creation, a mortal heart that had just erased a god. His ki flickered, drained, uncertain whether it had been victory or mourning. Whis appeared beside him, voice gentle as starlight. You did what was necessary. Gohan's voice broke. Did I? Or did I just become what he was?
Whis looked at him for a long moment. That depends on whether you forget why you acted.
Destruction without compassion is cruelty, but compassion without will is impotence. You carried both." The words should have comforted him, but they only deepened the ache. Gohan turned his gaze toward the distant horizon, where new light was forming, the rebirth of galaxies freed from Belmod's chaos. "He wasn't evil," Gohan murmured. "He was afraid of losing purpose." Whis nodded, as all gods eventually are. Immortality without meaning is the slowest death of all. The angel extended his staff and space folded. In an instant, they returned to Beerus's world. The stars above seemed dimmer now, humbled by what they had witnessed. Beerus was waiting. His arms were crossed, tail flicking lazily, but there was no mockery in his eyes this time, only wary respect. "You erased a god," he said simply. Gohan looked down. "I didn't mean to. I wanted to help him." Beerus huffed. "And yet you did what no mortal should be capable of. You ended him. That makes you dangerous to the gods and to yourself." Gohan met his gaze. "Then what am I now?" Beerus stepped closer, his expression unreadable. Something in between. For a moment, the ancient deity seemed to study him not as a rival, but as a reflection, the face of what he might once have been before the universe hardened his heart. "Do you know what the true test of a god of destruction is, Gohan?" Beerus asked. Gohan shook his head. "It's not power. It's not obedience to Zeno or balance or any of that cosmic nonsense." His eyes glimmered with faint gold. "It's whether you can destroy what you love most when the universe demands it." The words struck like a blade. Gohan's heart tightened. "I couldn't." Beerus gave a faint, tired smile. "Then you're still mortal. But perhaps that's what we've been missing."
He turned away, looking toward the stars. "Whis, prepare him. Zeno will want an audience." Whis inclined his head. "As you wish, my lord." Gohan stepped back, the realization sinking in. The high court of the multiverse, the presence of all angels, the gaze of Zeno, the childlike god who had erased entire realities with a thought. He wasn't ready. And yet, deep down, he knew readiness no longer mattered. The path had chosen him. As Whis raised his staff and the gate of divine light opened once again, Gohan looked up at the horizon, where the purple dawn of destruction met the golden warmth of creation. For the first time, he understood what it meant to stand between them. He wasn't here to fight. He wasn't here to destroy. He was here to balance. And so when the gate swallowed him, the stars themselves bowed, for they knew a mortal had walked where even gods feared to tread. The flame of Hakai flickered quietly in his heart, not as wrath, but as remembrance. The scholar had become the storm, the sun had become the silence, and the universe waited to see what he would choose next. The grand palace of Zeno was a place where silence had form, where even time dared not breathe too loudly. Golden pillars stretched infinitely into light, each engraved with histories of gods long forgotten. The air shimmered with quiet omniscience. Within that endless hall, Gohan stood, small, mortal, yet carrying a presence that bent the space around him. Whis walked beside him, calm as always, though the staff in his hand pulsed faintly, a sign of hidden tension. Above them, two thrones glowed, not massive, but oddly childlike in design. Upon them sat the twin Zenos, the supreme deities of existence. Their eyes were bright and innocent, but beneath that innocence lived eternity itself, capable of unmaking creation with a whim.
Whis, Beerus! Oh, you brought someone new, chirped one Zeno, his voice echoing like laughter inside a dream. The other Zeno tilted his head. A mortal? That's new. Gohan bowed low, the weight of infinite eyes pressing upon his spine. Introduce him, said the first Zeno. Whis stepped forward. Presenting Son Gohan of Universe 7, scholar, warrior, and candidate. The room shifted at that word. Even the angels and attendants stirred. Candidate, one whispered softly. A mortal. Gohan's heart thudded once, heavy as thunder. He could feel the attention of every god of destruction focused on him, from Champa's amused grin to Quitella's narrowed suspicion. Only Beerus remained still, his golden eyes unreadable. Zeno's gaze flickered with curiosity. A mortal for destruction? How fun! Has there been one before? No, murmured the Grand Priest, stepping forward. His voice was smooth, measured, the calm of an ocean that had drowned empires. He studied Gohan for a long moment, his ancient eyes piercing through flesh and soul alike. You carry the Hakai flame, yet you are not consumed by it. Tell me, mortal, why? Gohan lifted his head. His voice was quiet, but it carried the clarity of truth. Because I don't destroy to erase what must remain. A whisper of disbelief rippled through the chamber. One of the gods, Sidra, scoffed, his aura flaring green. Protection through destruction, contradiction. He speaks like a Kaioshin, not a god. Beerus's tail flicked. And yet, Sidra, you've never understood either side fully. The other gods murmured, some amused, some offended. Zeno clapped his small hands, silencing them instantly. Let's see, then. If he is to destroy, let us show us what kind of god he'd be. Before Gohan could respond, the floor beneath him transformed, a vast sphere of transparent energy rising around him like a dome. Inside it shimmered 1,000 planets, each representing a world of different life and balance.
The Grand Priest's voice resonated. This is the trial of equilibrium. Each world has both harmony and corruption. A god of destruction must decide what deserves to end and what must endure. Gohan felt his pulse quicken. You want me to decide who lives? Not who, the Grand Priest said. What? The god of destruction does not see faces, only patterns. The task felt colder than any battle. He closed his eyes and reached out with his key. His mind expanded, touching the simulated universes before him. One world was poisoned by war, yet within it he felt the faint light of love still burning. A mother cradling a child beneath falling ash. Another was peaceful, but stagnant, its people empty of will, devoid of purpose. A third glowed bright, but its light came from greed, a civilization devouring its own stars to feed its ambition. Every decision tore at him. To end life was easy. To understand why it must end, that was unbearable. Whis watched in silence as Gohan's aura began to flicker. Gold mixed with violet, storming and fading in waves. His heart is resisting, murmured one angel. Good, Beerus said quietly. That means he still feels it. Hours passed, though in that divine chamber, time had no meaning. Finally, Gohan opened his eyes. I can't destroy them all, he said softly. Each world still holds meaning.
Even the darkest one has light left somewhere. The Grand Priest's eyes narrowed. And yet you must choose. That is the burden of creation's opposite. Gohan's jaw clenched. He looked at the dying worlds again, felt their pain, their beauty, their contradictions. Then, slowly, he raised his hand. I'll destroy the one that forgot how to feel. The energy flared. The world of perfect order, peaceful but soulless, dissolved in a whisper of violet light. The chamber fell silent.
When the light faded, Gohan's shoulders sagged. His eyes shimmered with tears, but there was peace in them. Zeno leaned forward, smiling faintly. He didn't choose the easy one. The Grand Priest inclined his head. He chose as a god should, not by instinct, but by insight. Beerus closed his eyes, something like pride flickering in his expression. But then the air trembled. From across the divine court, a harsh voice erupted. Insight or arrogance? Every head turned. It was Vermoud, the angel of the fallen universe 11, his aura pulsing with grief and accusation, his gaze fixed on Gohan. You speak of balance, mortal, yet you murdered my god. You think mercy justifies erasure? Gohan's breath caught. I asked him to free him. Vermoud's eyes burned red. You think that absolves you? You killed divinity, and now they reward you for it. The chamber grew heavy. Zeno tilted his head. Is he angry? The Grand Priest's tone was low. He grieves. Angels do not feel as mortals do, but they remember. Whis' voice was calm, but tense. Vermoud, stand down. But the angel's power surged. No, if mortals are to play God, then God shall test them. He raised his hand. A sphere of searing blue light formed. Angelic ki, pure and merciless. Whis moved to intervene, but before he could, Gohan stepped forward, his voice firm. No. He looked straight at Vermoud. If this is my trial, then let it be mine.
The angel's eyes narrowed. Then prepare, mortal. And as the sphere launched forward, brighter than 1,000 suns, Gohan met it head-on, aura igniting with violet fire once more. The explosion swallowed the hall. Even the gods shielded their eyes. When the light cleared, the chamber was split in two, silence hanging like judgment. And in the center, through the smoke and fading flame, Gohan still stood. But something in his aura had changed. It no longer shimmered gold or violet. It burned white. And even Whis, for the first time in eons, whispered in awe, "Impossible! The light of pure balance." The light surrounding Gohan didn't flare, it breathed. Each pulse of that pale energy sent ripples through the divine chamber, bending space itself. It wasn't destructive, nor was it calm. It was both, like the pause between inhale and exhale, the moment between dawn and dusk, a place where opposites coexisted without fighting. The Grand Priest's eyes widened. His voice, usually so measured, faltered with awe. This is beyond Hakai, beyond ultra instinct. It is equilibrium itself. And even Whis took a step forward, his composure breaking for the briefest instant. A mortal, embodying pure duality, impossible. But Gohan didn't hear them. He stood silent, breathing slowly, his eyes glowing a soft, luminous white. The violet flame that had once burned violently within him now mingled with the golden warmth of his Saiyan spirit, and from that union, something new had emerged. He felt no pain, no fear, only awareness of every breath in the chamber, every trembling heart, every thread of energy that connected all living things. He could feel the sorrow in Vermoud's fury. He could feel Beerus's reluctant pride. He could even feel Zeno's innocent curiosity fluttering like a child's wonder.
But most of all, he felt balance. Vermoud, blinded by his own grief, staggered back. What are you? Gohan turned to him, his voice quiet but clear.
so calm it silenced even the whispering gods. I'm still mortal, but for this moment, I understand what you've forgotten. Vermoud's aura wavered, flickering like a candle in wind. And what's that? That destruction and creation aren't enemies. They're dance partners. He raised his hand, not in attack, but in peace. The air around Vermoud's broken energy shimmered, folding back into stillness. The angel froze, eyes wide, as the destructive current he had unleashed unraveled, dissolving into the same white light that surrounded Gohan. Whis exhaled softly. He's not erasing energy. He's harmonizing it. The gods leaned forward. Even Zeno was quiet now, his small hands resting on the arms of his throne as he watched with wide-eyed fascination. The storm in the chamber faded, leaving only a serene hum, the resonance of divine equilibrium. When the light dimmed, Gohan's aura faded to normal, his hair returned to black. His knees buckled and he sank to the floor, exhausted but alive. Vermoud approached slowly, the fury gone from his face. I felt him. For a moment, I felt Belmod's peace. He knelt beside Gohan, eyes lowered. Perhaps I was the one who needed to be destroyed. Gohan smiled weakly. No one needs to be destroyed, only understood. The chamber was silent for a long while. Then Zeno clapped his hands, beaming. That was beautiful! He glowed like the stars! The Grand Priest smiled faintly, though his gaze was heavy with thought. Indeed, Father, but beauty born of balance is rare and dangerous. He looked to Gohan. You've stepped beyond both mortal and divine boundaries. Such harmony cannot exist for long. The universe demands separation. You will soon fall or ascend. Gohan's voice was faint, yet resolute. If balance demands sacrifice, I'll accept that. Beerus finally spoke, his tone low. You don't know what you're saying.
Gohan looked up, meeting his eyes. Maybe not, but I know what it means to carry responsibility. You destroy to keep balance. I'll destroy only when mercy can't save. Beerus's tail flicked once, a gesture that, from him, meant respect. You're either the wisest fool I've ever met, or the most dangerous god this universe has ever seen. Whis stepped forward. My lord, the council must decide. Shall he inherit the mantle, or shall this power be contained? The Grand Priest raised his hand, summoning a sphere of crystalline light. Within it, a vision appeared. Thousands of worlds trembling across the multiverse, reacting to Gohan's awakening. Civilizations felt a stillness, a whisper, as if the universe itself had exhaled. The balance he radiates, the Grand Priest murmured, is resonating through creation. Planets on the brink of war are pausing, black holes shrinking. Even the flow of time in Universe 6 has slowed. He is stabilizing reality itself. Gasps spread through the assembly. Zeno's eyes sparkled. He makes everything calm. I like that. The Grand Priest, however, looked uneasy. Calm is not always balance. Too much stillness breeds stagnation. Creation thrives on motion. He turned to Whis. He must learn to wield this equilibrium without erasing motion. Otherwise, he will end everything, not through destruction, but through silence. Gohan tried to rise, but the energy had drained him completely. His body trembled, mortal frame struggling to contain what it was never meant to hold. Whis appeared beside him, touching his shoulder gently. You've gone far enough for today. As they prepared to leave, Zeno's voice rang out once last time, soft but layered with an unsettling depth. Son Gohan, when you return to your world, remember what you saw here. Balance is fragile. Even peace can break.
And then the gates closed. Whis and Gohan emerged once more on the quiet surface of Beerus's planet. The sky was serene, as if the stars themselves hadn't just witnessed a mortal rewrite the laws of godhood. For a long time, Gohan said nothing. Then, quietly, "Whis, what happens now?" "Now you learn what happens when mortals carry divine burdens home." In the distance, the suns began to set, one golden, one violet. The colors merged into white at the horizon.
And beneath that celestial twilight, Gohan felt something stir deep within his heart. Not power, not fear, a premonition. The peace he had earned would soon demand its price. The wind carried the echo of a whisper, not from gods, but from the threads of fate itself. The storm that brings balance must one day break. Night had fallen over Beerus's world. The stars above glowed softly, casting ribbons of light across the tranquil seas of cosmic glass. For the first time in eons, the god of destruction's realm was utterly still, yet that stillness carried weight. A silence not of rest, but of anticipation. Gohan sat upon one of the floating islands, knees drawn close, gazing into the water that reflected the twin suns now vanished beyond the horizon. His reflection shimmered between gold, violet, and pale white, fragments of what he had become. But as he watched, the reflection began to distort, rippling outward. It no longer mirrored him. He saw faces in the water, the ghosts of everything he had ever been. The boy who once cried in fear before Raditz's power, the young warrior trembling before Cell's madness, the scholar who turned away from battle to raise his son, and now something beyond all of them. He didn't know what frightened him more, losing his humanity or never finding it again. Whis stood behind him, silent for once. The angel's staff was grounded in the crystalline soil, its light dim. He had watched this transformation unfold, seen mortals rise and fall, but something about this one unsettled even him. "You're quiet," Whis said softly. Gohan didn't look up. "I don't know who I am anymore." "Few do. Even gods forget."
Gohan's hand trembled as he touched the water, watching the ripples distort his face. "That power, when it came over me, it didn't feel like something I was using. It felt like something that was using me." Whis tilted his head. "And did you resist it?" "I didn't know how." The angel smiled faintly. "Then perhaps it wasn't possession. Perhaps it was understanding." Gohan turned, his expression caught between exhaustion and defiance. "Understanding of what? That I can erase gods? That I'm supposed to decide who lives and dies?" Whis met his gaze. "That you can destroy and still remain kind." The words struck him deeper than any blow could. Kindness, it sounded so simple, yet to retain it amidst infinite power was the rarest form of strength. Whis stepped closer. "Gohan, your power is not your burden, it's your mirror. What you fear within yourself will shape what it becomes." The angel gestured to the sky. "Do you see the stars trembling? The cosmos feels your hesitation. If your heart falters, the balance you've set in motion may fracture." Gohan rose, staring into the infinite night. "Then teach me to control it." Whis nodded slowly. "Very well, but know this lesson cannot be taught, only endured." With a wave of his staff, the world shifted. The island beneath Gohan's feet dissolved, and he was cast into a void of endless twilight. No ground, no stars, no sound, only a soft hum, the heartbeat of creation itself.
Where am I? He whispered. Whis's voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere. Inside the Axis realm, where mortals confront the truth of their essence. This place will not test your strength, it will test your identity. And then the silence fractured. From the void emerged figures, countless versions of Gohan, each radiating different auras. Some glowed gold with the fury of a Super Saiyan, others shimmered in scholars' robes, holding books instead of blades. One stood with darkened eyes, surrounded by ruins, whispering, "Peace is a lie, power is mercy."
Gohan recoiled. What is this? Whis's voice was calm. These are the lives you could have lived, the selves you abandoned or feared to become. You cannot ascend until you accept them all. The forms advanced, whispering accusations in his own voice. You let Cell live too long. You hid when the world needed you. You became weak. You're nothing without rage. The air thickened, pressing down on him. His aura flared instinctively, but every surge of energy only made the illusion stronger. They fed on resistance. Whis's voice echoed faintly. Balance is not achieved by suppression, Gohan. It's achieved by embrace. Gohan dropped to his knees, the weight of memory and doubt crushing him. I can't embrace them. They're everything I've tried to forget. A figure stepped forward, one that looked exactly like him at age 11, the moment before his final battle with Cell. The child's eyes were soft, trembling with fear, yet within them burned that same deep power that had once shattered worlds. You're afraid of me, the boy said quietly. Gohan looked at him. You were the part that only knew how to destroy. No, the boy replied. I was the part that believed you could do more. The words pierced through the noise. The void stilled. One by one, the echoes faded, leaving only the child. He smiled. Faint, but genuine. You wanted peace so badly that you forgot power could protect it. The boy reached out. Stop choosing one over the other. Be both. Gohan hesitated, then took his younger self's hand. In that instant, light erupted across the void. Not gold, not violet, not white, but something beyond color. The kind of brilliance that can only be seen when eyes are closed and hearts are open. When the light faded, Gohan was standing again on Beerus's planet, but he was not the same. His aura was no longer divided by hue. It shimmered with every color of his journey, radiant yet humble, immense yet gentle. Whis stood before him, smiling faintly. So you chose unity? Gohan nodded. I chose to stop running from myself. Whis looked upward. Then you are ready for the final step, but beware, the closer one comes to balance, the more violently the universe resists it. Beerus appeared then, materializing in a flash of violet energy. His expression was unreadable. You've changed. Gohan looked at him, calm and grounded. Maybe, or maybe I finally remembered who I was. Beerus's gaze hardened. Then remember this, even gods bow to the cycle. When you defy it, it breaks you. And before Gohan could reply, Beerus's hand rose. The air vibrated. The ground beneath them cracked. The time for lessons is over, boy. Now you face judgment. The sky erupted in purple flame. The air split open like a wound in heaven. From the clouds above poured the purest essence of Hakai, purple lightning that scorched even the concept of air. Beerus descended through it like an omen, his eyes no longer lazy and amused, but cold, sharp, and infinite. Gohan stood his ground. The transformation he had just endured still lingered within him, not as raw energy, but as alignment. His body felt human, but his spirit moved with cosmic rhythm. "You're angry," Gohan said quietly. Beerus's kale lashed once hard enough to crack the surface of his world. "Anger?" he sneered. "Don't flatter yourself, mortal. This isn't anger. This is truth."
In an instant, Beerus was gone. And then, there. His fist connected with Gohan's chest, faster than sight, a blow that could erase galaxies. The impact threw Gohan across the horizon, through floating peaks and oceans of starlight. He landed hard, carving a canyon through the planet's crystalline terrain. For a heartbeat, everything was silent. Then Gohan rose, not out of defiance, but purpose. He didn't flare his aura. He didn't transform. He simply stood. Beerus appeared again, his form blurring with motion. "You call yourself balance, but balance is death. Motion, chaos, hunger, that is life, that is divinity." The god's energy spiked, a storm of violet radiance consuming the world. Each pulse of it obliterated mountains, erased oceans. Gohan barely managed to deflect the next strike, and even then, it felt like catching the weight of eternity in his bare hands. "I don't make sense to you," Gohan said through gritted teeth. "Balance isn't stillness, it's motion guided by meaning." Beerus's laughter shook the stars. "Meaning? There is no meaning, only duty." The god vanished again, reappearing behind him, palm extended. "Hakai!" The universe screamed. The blast engulfed Gohan completely, purple light devouring form, matter, and will. Whis, floating far above, did not intervene. He merely watched, his expression neither sorrowful nor proud. He whispered, "The master tests the student, but not to win, only to see if the lesson lives." The light faded, and Gohan still stood. Smoke curled from his skin, his clothes torn, blood trickling down his arm. But his eyes were calm. Not white, not gold, not violet, just calm, black and human.
Beerus froze. Gohan spoke softly. "You destroy because you were told to. I destroy because I understand when it's needed. That's the difference." He raised his hand, and the air stilled. The faint hum of ki resonated, gentle but endless. Every living thing on Beerus's world seemed to pause, even the wind. Then, a flicker, a pulse, the birth of something new. The energy that formed around Gohan was not flame, but light, golden at its edges, violet at its heart, white at its center. It was creation wrapped in destruction, destruction softened by compassion. It hummed with both fury and serenity. Whis's staff trembled in his grasp. "The mortal flame," he breathed. "He's merged both principles, the divine paradox." Beerus stared, his face caught between awe and denial. What are you?" Gohan took a step forward, and the ground beneath his feet reformed from the destruction Beerus had caused. Mountains rising again, oceans returning, even the stars above brightening. Every step he took restored what had been lost. "I am what comes after destruction," Gohan said quietly. "The flame that burns not to consume, but to renew." Beerus roared and lunged, his claws wreathed in blinding violet. The shockwave alone tore the sky apart. But Gohan caught the strike effortlessly, holding it in both hands. For a moment, the two forces locked, destruction against restoration, wrath against acceptance. Then Gohan whispered, "You don't have to fight me, Beerus." The words, gentle yet absolute, rippled through the god's energy. Beerus faltered just slightly, enough for Gohan to reach forward, touching 2 fingers to his forehead. In that instant, the Hakai aura collapsed. The flames vanished, the storm ceased, and in its place, only silence remained. Gohan lowered his hand. Beerus stood motionless, his eyes wide, chest heaving. What he saw within that touch, within that stillness, defied everything he had ever known.
He saw destruction as peace. He saw endings that gave birth to beginnings. He saw himself, tired, lonely, ancient, longing not for dominance, but for rest. Beerus stumbled back, shaking his head as if waking from a nightmare. "What did you show me?" "The truth," Gohan said, "that even gods can crave balance." The god sank to one knee. For the first time he bowed, not from defeat, but from recognition. "You've surpassed us," Beerus murmured. "You've done what gods never could." Gohan shook his head. "No, I've just remembered what it means to care." Whis descended then, his voice warm but tinged with gravity. "It is done, my lord. The universe recognizes its new equilibrium." Beerus looked up at Gohan, eyes weary, but lighter than they had been in centuries. "Then it seems my time is over." But Gohan frowned. "No, you don't need to disappear. The universe doesn't need another god of destruction. It needs balance. Both of us." Beerus blinked. "Both?" Gohan smiled faintly. "Creation needs destruction, but destruction needs compassion. Neither of us should exist without the other." Whis' eyes glimmered. How poetic. Perhaps the multiverse has evolved. Above them, the heavens shifted. The twin suns rose again, one gold, one violet. But this time, they merged at the horizon into a single radiant flame, burning softly. Gohan looked up at it, feeling warmth flow through him, not divine, not mortal, but something eternal in between.
Whis placed a hand upon his shoulder. "You've transcended the gods, Gohan, not by power, but by balance. Yet your journey isn't done. There is still one who must witness this." Gohan looked at him. "Who?" Whis smiled gently. "The one who taught you mercy." And as the twin suns merged fully into one, the light wrapped around Gohan's form, lifting him upward through space and time. He closed his eyes, letting the radiance carry him past worlds, past galaxies, toward the blue planet that still pulsed faintly in his heart. Earth, the place where gods learned to be human, and where a human had just become something beyond godhood. The light carried Gohan gently through the void, neither fast nor slow, but with a rhythm that felt like breath itself. Around him, stars drifted as if bowing in reverence. Each one glimmered faintly gold and violet, whispering in the language of energy, as though the cosmos recognized its new equilibrium. He passed through galaxies like a quiet wind through tall grass. The further he traveled, the less he felt like a being moving through space, and more like space moving through him. Every vibration, every faint hum of a distant sun resonated in his chest. He wasn't apart from the universe anymore. He was its heartbeat. Then, through the stillness, came something warmer. A blue glow. A scent he could never forget. Earth. He descended gently over Mount Paozu, the air cool and clear, the forest whispering in twilight. The world was peaceful, not silent, but alive in its serenity. He landed softly beside his old home, the grass bending but not burning beneath his feet.
The door slid open. Videl stood there. Her eyes widened, not in fear, but in recognition. The way someone looks at a dream they'd forgotten they once had. "Gohan!" Her voice trembled. He smiled, but there was something deeper behind it. A quiet sorrow, a knowing peace. "It's me," he said softly. She stepped closer, the golden light of the setting sun reflecting off her tears. "You've changed." "I had to,"
to protect everything that mattered. Goten ran from behind her, laughing. "Dad, you're glowing!" Gohan knelt down, his eyes gentle. "Only for a little while, buddy." He touched Goten's hair, and for a fleeting instant the boy's aura shimmered, a trace of the same harmony that now flowed through the stars. Gohan could feel the heartbeat of his family, their warmth grounding him, reminding him of the very thing he fought to protect. Videl reached out, her hand brushing his cheek. "Are you coming home?" He looked into her eyes, and silence stretched between them, not emptiness, but the fullness of all they'd shared. For a while, before the universe calls again. Above them, the clouds began to glow. Whis appeared in the sky, his staff radiating soft azure light. "Your family deserves you," the angel said, his voice carrying from the heavens. "But know this, balance must always find its bearer. The flame will not sleep forever." Gohan nodded. "I know." Whis regarded him with faint pride. "Beerus is quieter now. He spends more time in reflection. Perhaps that is your influence." A small laugh escaped Gohan. I doubt he'd admit that. "Perhaps not," Whis agreed with a smile. "But he no longer dreams of endings. That is enough." The angel's form shimmered, fading into starlight, leaving behind only his final words. "You've not replaced the gods, Gohan. You've reminded them what they were meant to be." The air grew still again. Videl rested her head against Gohan's shoulder as the sun dipped below the mountains. The faint echo of divine power still lingered in the air, but it didn't feel distant anymore. It felt natural. For the first time in his life, Gohan felt whole. Not torn between strength and peace, not haunted by what he could have been. He finally was. As night fell, he looked up at the stars. They seemed closer now, as if listening. Somewhere out there he knew Beerus sat beneath the twin suns, eyes closed, watching the horizon with the faintest trace of contentment. Perhaps that was balance. Not the end of conflict, but the acceptance that it will always return, and that one must meet it without hatred. Videla's voice broke the silence. "What happens next?" Gohan smiled faintly. "Next? I teach, I live, I watch over what we've built, and when it's time, I'll go where I'm needed again." She looked at him, her eyes glistening. "And if that time never comes?" "Then," he said, wrapping an arm around her, "the universe will finally know peace." The wind carried their laughter through the valley. Fireflies danced among the grass. The stars above shimmered, two brightest among them, one gold and one violet, circling slowly until they overlapped into a single radiant flame.
And far beyond mortal sight, in the quiet heart of existence, the Grand Priest watched the merging lights, whispering to himself, "The mortal flame burns not to end, but to remind the gods that even eternity must feel." The cosmos exhaled, and somewhere between heaven and earth, the legend of Son Gohan, the scholar who became balance, was written into the rhythm of creation itself. The stars did not weep. They glowed as if remembering his will. There are moments in eternity that even the gods remember in silence. Moments when the pulse of creation slows, as if the universe itself is listening to a story it's heard before. One whispered by mortals, sung by stars, and written in the language of Ki. Years had passed from the day Gohan descended from the heavens. Earth had healed from its old scars, and its skies were no longer streaked by comets of war or divine energy. The people of the world lived simple lives again, unburdened by the tremors of gods. But now and then, when storms rolled across the horizon, The lightning would flash gold and violet, and the wind would hum softly, as if the planet itself remembered his name. Gohan had returned to teaching, though his students whispered legends about him, that he could stop time with a breath or turn mountains to dust with a thought. He smiled when he heard such stories. The truth was quieter. He still taught history, still walked home with Goten after classes, still helped Videl tend the garden when the sun went down. But within him, a new rhythm beat, a stillness vast enough to contain the stars. He had not shed his godhood, he had simply learned how to wear it lightly. Sometimes, when night fell and the house slept, Gohan would step outside and lift his gaze to the stars. He could feel them, the weight of universes moving, the sighs of distant angels, the faint laughter of Beerus echoing from across infinity. Yet none of it felt beyond him anymore. It all felt connected. On one such night, a familiar hum filled the air. Whis appeared in a swirl of gentle light, his staff glowing faint blue. "You've been quiet," he said, with a hint of a smile. "I promised Videl no more cosmic drama for a while," Gohan said, grinning faintly.
"Ah," Whis replied. "Peace, the rarest form of defiance." They stood in silence for a while, watching the constellations drift. The air smelled of rain and earth. Then Whis spoke, voice softer now. "Do you ever miss it?" "The battles?" Whis shook his head. "The sound of gods breathing your name." Gohan smiled, though there was something wistful in it. "No, I think they still do. But I don't need to answer anymore." Whis regarded him quietly. "You've grown beyond the reach of the divine hierarchy. Even the Grand Priest speaks of you not as anomaly, but as balance itself. The universe has stabilized in your wake. Stars are forming more evenly. Black holes have quieted." "That sounds like peace," Gohan said. "It is. But peace is not eternal. Sooner or later, imbalance returns. And when it does, something will call you again." Gohan turned to him, eyes steady. "Then I'll answer when it does. But not as a god. As myself." Whis' lips curved faintly upward. As expected. He turned to leave, but paused. "One more thing, son Gohan." Gohan looked at him. Whis' gaze softened, almost human. "Beerus watches you more than he admits. He hasn't slept since your ascension. He sits by the ocean, staring at the suns. He says the silence feels heavier without you." Gohan's expression wavered, a flicker of emotion cutting through the calm. "Tell him? He's not alone in that silence." Whis nodded, smiling. "I will." The angel vanished, leaving only a faint echo, a sound like wind brushing against starlight. The next morning, Gohan woke early and walked to the mountain peak where his father once trained him. The valley stretched below, golden in the sunrise. He sat quietly, breathing in the scent of the earth. For a while he said nothing. Then, softly, "Dad, I think I understand now." He looked up at the sky, at the light that once guided every Saiyan dream. "You chased strength because it made you feel alive. I chased peace because I feared losing myself. But they were never opposites, were they? They were two halves of the same flame." The wind stirred, gentle, almost playful, and Gohan could have sworn he heard laughter carried on it. The same bright, careless laughter that once belonged to a man who could defy gods with a smile. He smiled back. "I'll carry it from here." The world below shimmered, alive with color. The rivers caught the light of dawn and scattered it like fragments of gold. To any ordinary eye, it was just another sunrise. But to the universe, it was something else. A heartbeat. Across the stars, angels watched, Kaioshians whispered, even Zeno caused from his play to gaze through the veil of time and space. "He's so quiet," the child god said softly. The grand priest bowed his head. That is the mark of true power, when strength no longer needs to speak. And from somewhere deep within the vast folds of creation, Beerus opened his eyes, the twin suns reflected in them, one violet, one gold. "He's doing well," he murmured.
Whis appeared beside him. "You almost sound proud." Beerus chuckled softly. "Don't start rumors." They sat together in silence, watching as light rippled across the stars. For the first time, destruction and peace felt indistinguishable. Back on Earth, Gohan stood and stretched, the wind tugging gently at his hair. He turned toward home, the faint warmth of ki pulsing through him, not fiery, not divine, just alive. As he walked, he heard Goten's laughter in the distance, and Videl's voice calling from the garden. Life, fragile, beautiful, imperfect, moved on, and Gohan moved with it, neither god nor man, but something eternal in between. He stopped once, glancing back at the horizon. The morning sun glowed pale gold, its edges brushed with violet. The colors met and folded into one another, burning softly like memory. He whispered to the wind, "May it always burn, but never consume." The wind carried his words upward, through clouds, through stars, through realms, until even the gods could hear them. And for a brief, trembling moment, all creation answered with silence, not emptiness, but peace, the kind that comes after every storm. The stars burned quietly, as if remembering his will.